Welcome to those 90s Teachers podcast with Tasya and Zara, where we are currently taking up space in the education arena in different parts of the world.
Throughout this journey, you will learn about being a teacher in today's society as we share personal stories and life experiences in the classroom.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Them 90s Teachers. Today we have an actually really special episode because this is actually our first collaboration with two amazing educators that started their own educational AI system. And so we actually have Thomas and Thomas, and they are the owners of Eduaide.Ai, and we are so happy to have them on this episode. And so Thomas and Thomas would love for you guys to individually introduce yourselves and let people know who you are and what you do.
Thomas, do you want to go first? I'm
Yeah,
gonna keep saying
sure.
Thomas, just make this confusing. I'm Thomas Thompson, and I'm also with Thomas.
Hummel.
There we go. You want to go ahead?
All right. So, yeah, we're both teachers. At least I am a science teacher, and we met on the Eastern Shore of Maryland, and we started teaching together at a Title I school. And, we saw that there is problems in education that one teacher simply cannot solve. And so we definitely saw the issues with the whole system of education. And we just sought out to fix some of those and to help teachers, create higher quality lessons and save time with lesson planning. And that's really where Eduaide kind of came from. So Tom, you're a little bit better with this.
I mean, if you're not from Maryland, he made it sound really romantic. We met on the eastern shores of Maryland. Yeah, no, what that really means is he and I worked together in a rural school district. We had cornfields on each side. I mean, there were really no houses around, and the kids are getting bussed in. Some students, I mean, what was the bus run for some of those kids? 45 minutes, an hour, half?
Hour and a half.
So the kids are coming in from a wide range of backgrounds, some a little more suburban, some are incredibly rural. And what that typically means, if you've worked in a rural school district, I'm sure you understand, is that resources are limited and you really have to stretch and improvise and really take ownership for your own class and don't expect too much support. I mean, people are there to help, but you really got to strike it out on your own. And in that atmosphere, in that context, Thomas and I had many conversations about our profession and how maybe we think it could be improved or ways that we could improve it at least, because, we're approaching it with our own assumptions and biases given our backgrounds. And out of those conversations eventually came what became Eduaide.Ai. Yeah, as Thomas said, Eastern Shore, Maryland, but we actually grew up 15 minutes from each other in Western Pennsylvania. Never once knew who we were until we became teachers. So that's interesting.
Impeccable.
Brought us
That is
together. Yeah.
amazing.
Small world.
Very small world. I've been learning that a lot lately. So I love to start things off light and fun because I love games and I love icebreakers. That's the number one thing I always do with my class is icebreakers, and they live for it. So I'm going to ask you guys a few questions and you can answer however you feel comfortable. Probably just like two questions.
Okay.
All right. So if you got to choose your name, what would it be and why?
My name is Thomas Alfred Thompson the Fourth. I think I'm gonna stick with that. I mean, I got a whole title. It feels like you could put a sir in front of it if you want. I mean, that's a little pompous, so probably not. But I like Thomas. I'm happy with that. I feel like I'm carrying a lot of history with me. I mean, I inherited some of my great grandfather's war uniforms, and they have our name embroidered in it. And like, I can't trade that in.
I can't stand the name Thomas, so
That's easy. Switch your name, man. So it make this whole thing a lot easier.
I don't know I'm not sure, but something cool for sure.
Something cool. You know what's interesting? For my whole life, I wanted to change my name because no one could ever pronounce it correctly. So it was so embarrassing. Every school year, they would butcher my name. I've heard the strangest enunciations of my name throughout my life. But as I gotten older, I realized that having a unique name or one that no one ever really has is different. So I'm learning to accept it at the age I am. So I got it. Okay. Next question. Let's see. Okay. If you could use magic to do one mundane task for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Oh, magic. Hmm.
Cleaning.
You'd have magical cleaning
Both
assistants.
of you
Yup.
guys with
That's pretty
cleaning?
nice.
I'd be like, boom, house is clean. That'd be great. Then I could just sit back and relax, and
See, I'm gonna sound like a psycho. Actually like cleaning the house a little bit. There's something zen about putting everything in its
Therapeutic.
place and scrubbing it down and being like, this place is clean
it's
because
just
of me.
monotonous.
Thomas
But
is like, I don't know about you, but no way.
if I could have a magical cup of coffee, that'd be. Then again, I like brewing my own coffee too. I don't know. I really don't know. This is rough. Maybe I'd have a magical way to handle social interactions that I feel awkward in. That might be that might be the best. Can you break the ice for me? Magical device.
You know what's interesting? I would actually do the same exact thing because I am definitely not the most socially adept person. So
That's why I love podcasts. It's like I want to be in a conversation. I just don't want to start one. That's the awkward part. Like, how do I
the
get to
worst.
where we can talk about meaningful things?
Right. I cannot stand starting conversations. I'm not the best at it. So that's even why I like playing different games because it kind of gets people to talking. Like, I don't have to worry about starting the question, but I can get the game to do it for me. So I feel you on that. All right, last question. What TV show would you want to be in, and which one would you not want to be in?
Star Trek: The Next Generation. I'd love to be in that
So
show.
you'd want to be in that. Okay.
Oh yes, that or Deep Space Nine, any of those late 80s, 90s Star Treks where those sets just look awesome. If I could just exist in that real universe, I'd even take that. I mean, it's just wonderful. And show I would not want to be in, I mean, probably any kind of HBO series. That just looks painful. Game of Thrones, I'm gonna get burned by a dragon, most definitely, or I'm gonna get tortured. Like that, no thanks. Succession, everyone's just gonna think I'm a sociopath, so I'm good without that. I'll stick with Star Trek.
Love it. Thomas?
Yeah, I would like to be in Breaking Bad because Walter White is incredible. Even though the whole crime thing, it's okay. We'll get past that. But he's just a cool dude. And
Cool dude.
yeah, and
This is Thomas Hummel's personal opinions in no way reflects Eduaide publicly.
100%. Yeah, just me, science teacher, just looking up to a major criminal in Walter White. But and one that I wouldn't want to be in would be like some sort of like Vikings or something like that. Just I think we live in a pretty good time compared to how it used to be.
I love that. I'm kind of embarrassed because I don't really watch a lot of shows. So, but I know what I would not want to be in. I wouldn't want to be in any of those Law and Order shows because honestly, that's one thing I think it gave me like a trauma response whenever I hear the doo doo, whenever it
Yeah.
starts. It freaks me out. I think my grandma watched so much of it growing up. Like I just am so turned off to it nowadays.
Yeah, me too.
Um,
It just puts me to sleep, honestly. I hear that because it goes for 10 episodes in a row.
Listen, trauma response. So I would say I wouldn't want to be in one of those. I think I would want to be in I can't even tell you because I don't really watch much, which is bad. I'm trying to get more into watching shows, but my attention span is so like, it's just so fickle at times that when I watch a show, I get distracted and I want to do something else, which is strange because usually people watch Netflix or watch shows to like get away from, things, but I don't know.
Maybe
That's what I was
shows
just
aren't your
gonna ask.
thing. Oh well.
Yeah, it's
Have
weird.
either of you watched Abbott Elementary?
Oh, I have seen that.
Yeah, I haven't seen any of that. Does it reflect teaching at all? Do you know, or like?
Does it reflect teaching? Yes. It's interesting because I thought that she was a teacher, but her mom was a teacher. So it's based on her mom's experience in the classroom. And it is actually very accurate, even with the characters that she has portrayed. Like she has the veteran teacher that's wise. She has the principal that at times is clueless. She has like the different teachers that have issues with light, like let's say structure wise in the school, and they want to fix things, and then they're like, girl, good luck. So they definitely play the character dynamic very, very well. But like I said, I have only seen a few episodes, only like maybe season 1, so I can't really attest to how the rest of the show goes.
Yeah, that's like what you're just saying. Like I watch things to kind of get away, and so that's why I like have stayed away from it. I was like, the last thing I want to do is focus on school more.
Oh, I
Yeah,
understand that.
exactly.
we started watching Ozarks, and I'm like, listen, I don't want to come home from work and just be more stressed. How about we can I just watch something that's less stressful, please?
Yeah,
And that's
my
where Star Trek comes in.
yes, my stepfather actually recommended me watch Dexter, you know, Dexter with the psychopath. And
Dexter's a great show.
right, and I tried, but then it stressed me out too because I'm like, this man is really like his mind is like wild.
Yeah.
And it just, I don't know, it stressed me out too. I'm working on it though. I'm trying to be like an actual person nowadays. I'm working on it. But yes, thank you for answering those questions.
Of course.
That's amazing. So we want to actually know more about you guys, Thomas and Thomas, and learn more about why you started Eduaide, a little bit about the backstory behind the company, and what really, what really sparked this interest of you guys to start.
All right. I'll start. A lot of Eduaide came from my academic background and my professional experiences, which I think both are kind of intertwined with each other. My background is in open educational resources. My degree is in educational technology, but that's what I studied. That's what I wrote my thesis on. And the reason that is an appealing area to me is that through the power of communication technologies and digital file sharing, which dramatically lowers the cost of information, that we can openly share, remix, and revise educational resources based on the experiences of other teachers and our own. And it creates this whole ecosystem of reuse and revision and sharing that kind of builds in this level of professional development where you have all of these teachers working together on all of these various open resources, building something more effective. And that seemed like an appealing idea to me. Like, how can we leverage existing technologies to not revolutionize, that's too great of a word, but to maybe refine the craft of teaching? And when Thomas came to me about this idea, became Eduaide, that seemed like a great use of a technology to kind of implement a lot of the ideas that I've been thinking of academically. And also, it was a technology that solves a lot of the problems that I myself had as a teacher, issues regarding planning time specifically, right? How much work I'm taking home, or the things that I can't do given the restrictions of time. Because while teaching may be central to really who I am, it's also my career. So I need to have that kind of that balance between the rest of my life and my work. And that balance was eroding very quickly within the first few years of teaching. I noticed it. And once summer hits, it feels like I just did 365 days worth of work, and just take a deep breath. And it's like, well, now I'm exhausted. And how do I combat that? Because if I'm just running ragged and I'm just exhausted, I'm not doing my best work. And if I'm just not doing my best work, why am I doing this? I'm doing this to give my best. So if I can't do that, what's the point? And that's a lot of where Eduaide came out. It was a tool that allowed me to provide broader access to educational resources to as many teachers as possible. And it also solves a lot of the problems I saw as a teacher. So it was a great marriage of two of concurrent lines of thought.
Wow. Honestly, I love that what you said about how, you wanted work-life balance, how you guys wanted work-life balance, because I know that many people outside the education field believe that teachers have it good because we have 2 months off for break, we get all the school holidays. But I don't think people actually realize how much mental, emotional work that goes into teaching, and that at the end of the school year, we are exhausted. And so then we recuperate over 2 months, we finally recuperate, and then we have to go back to work.
Mm-hmm.
So I love that. I went on a trip last summer, and honestly, I was tired the whole trip. It was a trip to Europe I went on, and I was exhausted the whole trip. And my friend was like, why are you so exhausted? I didn't even know why I was so exhausted. But when I reflected back on my year, I'm like, this was an exhausting year. I had to do a lot, not only just with the work of my actual workload, but also emotionally with the kids. When you actually invest yourself as a teacher, and like we were talking about earlier before we started recording, and you see yourself as someone that influence that has to uphold themselves in a certain standard for society because it is your profession.
Mhm.
You know, you care about the mental well-being of your students. And so that also takes energy and that also takes time. So congrats on even starting something, finding a problem, and then fixing it by, having a solution to combat that. That is absolutely amazing. Thomas, do you want to add something else?
Yeah, I just sort of, to Tom's point, is that, I was taking stuff home every single night, and I was coming in with like these lessons that I thought were great, the kids thought were great, administration thought was great, but I only had the kids for 65 minutes. And then they would go to another teacher who might not be putting in the same amount of work as I was, or wasn't as effective at certain things. And so, I just thought that by leveraging AI, we could really rise the tide for all teachers. And, I don't take home nearly as much work because I can get it done now a lot quicker. And I know that, if we have the right tools in this thing and teachers are using it, their lessons are going to be a lot better. And that means kids are going to get a higher quality of education. And that's my total goal.
Mhm.
Absolutely, because many teachers that I've worked with tons of teachers because I was a special ed teacher, and I had about four to five co-teachers a year. And a lot of teachers, especially if they've been in the field for 10 plus years, they'll just regurgitate what they've been using for the past couple years. However, what you begin to realize is that the kids change. Kids change, their mindsets change, the way that they engage with material changes as well. So even though I understand the saying, I know you hear it a lot, you can't reinvent the wheel, right? A lot of people say that all the time, and especially in the education field. I get that saying to not have you do more work, but at the same time, there are students out there with renewed senses of being and new senses of experiencing the world. And so there are some shifts that definitely need to happen so that they can get the most sustainable and I can't think of the other word, but to get the most enriching education that they can actually get. So I think that what you guys are doing it is revolutionary. I know you didn't want to say that earlier, Thomas. I know you guys are probably really confused because I'm like Thomas and Thomas, but literally that's their names. So Thomas, the one that I don't know. We gotta think of a nickname for y'all because this is gonna get
I'll
so
just, you know
confusing.
what? I'll bend on this. I'll just go by Tom for the rest of the episode. This is Thomas Thompson speaking. He will go by Tom for the remainder of the episode. I think that hopefully that clears it up.
It clears it up. The decision was made. So Tom, what Tom was saying earlier about making it so that we have that ability to create better. I think the other Thomas said this, to create more sustainable lessons and more quality lessons. So I love that.
Yeah, let me just say one thing on that too, is that clearly, if you look at the data, our system's failing and we're failing teachers, right? If we have really good people who are becoming teachers, like good human beings who are in it for kids, and they're quitting at 50% rate in the first few years, there's something systemically wrong about the system and what these people are asked to do. And I hate that. I hate that good human beings, adults who are great role models, are getting burnt out and can't help kids. And so, that's also a driving force behind this too. It's like there has to be a better way to manage the workload of a teacher that, high quality workers are coming in and they're helping kids.
And
Go ahead,
you
Tom.
you could dive deeper into that point as well. I mean, obviously teacher attrition within the first 3 years is a problem. Obviously, veteran teachers who might have 10, 15 years in, solidifying in their materials and not really evolving or changing, or even teachers in that intermediate period who may not be experimenting because the cost of experimentation and failure is so high, especially if it's something that might get observed or if there's walkthroughs in a class and they're kind of worried, I don't want to put myself out there and try something new and it fail, and then we're seeing a lack of growth. These three issues, I think, inform one another greatly, and providing a way, an outlet, a platform for new teachers, veteran teachers, or middle of the road teachers to go in and lower the cost of exploring new resources, lower the cost of exploring new techniques and methods, could only expose them to increasing amounts of professional development opportunities.
And
And those are
actual
more
professional
informed.
development.
Yes, it's not sitting in a cafeteria listening to a speaker giving you a PowerPoint at 7 in the morning or 8 in the morning or 4 o'clock after work, and you're kind of just not listening because you're planning your lesson on your laptop when you want to make it look like you're taking notes or you're thinking about the day. Well, now you actually have a tool where engaging with it will expose you to new methods and techniques that are then actionable. So you have real professional development in your planning process. It's built into everything, top to bottom. Because what we do at Eduaide is we don't give you a ready-made lesson. We give you a range of opportunities and avenues for you to explore. And this will save you time because now you're not jumping between the 10 or 15 different resources that your district paid for. And now you're looking through all your tabs to get over to translate and to get over to increase and decrease the Lexile or reading level. Well, now you have one platform where you could do it on. And that platform is giving you alternative suggestions to explore. So now you have professional development built into your planning.
Wow, love that. And honestly, Thomas, not Tom, Thomas, I could hear how passionate you guys are about that because it's true. The system doesn't do well by teachers. And like you said, if teachers are leaving at an alarming rate, then there's a problem. It's not just the teacher. And I think everything gets blamed on the teacher, like, oh, teachers are this, teachers are that. But if you look at it systemically and you actually look at the data, you will see that how can the person be the problem if it's like when you see mass people leaving in droves. I think COVID is what really exposed that too. There has to be a problem with the system. There's no way it can just be that individual person. I'm on the process of looking for new positions in the education field that don't revolve to be in the classroom. But whenever I go into any school's website, let's say even uncommon schools or charter schools, public schools, the list of amount of teacher positions open is actually pretty alarming. It's very alarming. You see English, social studies, math, like core subjects in huge districts. Sorry, go ahead, Thomas.
No, I just was going to say, some recent data that I was just reading was that 55% or higher of all schools this coming year are going to have openings that they cannot fill, right? So that's over half of schools that have money for jobs, but people don't want to take those jobs because of certain things about, the educational sector. And that's, the kids miss out on that. And it's horrible.
It is horrible because at the end of the day, I went into it because of my love for kids.
Yeah.
And it's sad that the reason why I left was not because of the kids. It never is. It's because of it's about choosing yourself over the kids, which is something that many teachers haven't been doing in a while. And I think me and Zahra talked about this a while ago, that when you notice that teachers are staying, that are leaving, and when the reason was for them staying was because of the kids, and now they're realizing, wait a minute, I have to choose myself first because this is my mental health. I have to choose myself first because this is burning me out. I have to choose myself first because my own life is deteriorating because I'm stressed. I can't enjoy the simple things I used to enjoy. And I'm losing my sense of self. So that's why I really love what you guys are doing. I think Tommy wanted to jump in. No?
Oh, no.
Oh, no? Okay. So yeah, I love what you guys are doing. This is, I still believe that it's very revolutionary. It's very radical, because it does simplify a process that could really exhaust us to no end.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that, when we look at our data from Eduaide, there is a need for teachers to get the help that they want. I mean, we just launched on March 23rd. We have 50,000 teachers already signed up. We've created over 400,000 pieces of unique educational content those teachers have. And, we talked about this before we started recording, but it's been so organic, and it's just, people seeing what we've made and putting it online, and then other people saying there's a need for it. So I think that, not to be egotistical, but we have the data to affirm that what we're doing, there's a need for.
Absolutely, because even with my tutoring company, like I was telling you guys earlier, I didn't go into specifics, but we create I create them. I create personalized curriculums for each of our kids. So even doing that I can do it, but even doing that, that's the one part of my business that does stress me out, even though it is, easy. It's easy, but it's time consuming. And so I was even thinking, like, what are the ways, because the kids do need a personalized education system from what I did my research on, and noticed that if I do a generic curriculum, they don't get the same results as a personalized curriculum. Yes. Right. So when I realized that data, I'm like, how can I make this process seamless for the tutors that I have, so that I don't have to do so much heavy work, especially when we get new students in, so that each student can get their own personalized curriculum. But at the same time, my tutors would know exactly what they need to be doing at the same time, so that I don't always have to be the main point person to create every single child's curriculum. So that's why I was even inquiring about, what do you guys do? How do you guys do it?
That's really interesting. You bring up the point of personalization being one of the more stressful things you have to do, because that is really the trend that we're moving towards in education, which is increasing personalization, increasing differentiation of materials, because teaching to the middle really is not effective, because you are leaving behind an entire group of students who would test or are below the middle point, and you are again boring and leaving out this entire higher end of students who are above the middle point. So when you teach to the middle, you're losing so many students, but it's a huge time investment to differentiate materials. And again, a lot of teachers are trained as teachers in the classroom and not teacher as instructional designer. And that's again a gap we're trying to close, empowering teachers to be instructional designers given their skill set as teachers in the classroom. So now you can take, say, a generative educational resource that the AI produced, and since that happens so quickly, quicker than it would take to cobble together a bunch of resources from all your school sites, you can now invest your time in differentiating and personalizing instruction.
Exactly.
So we shorten the time span on the initial planning process so that you can increase the time you spend on personalization and differentiation. A lot of feedback we get is sometimes, like, it'll say, well, the user will say, the AI generated content doesn't exactly sound like me. That's good. It shouldn't sound like you.
Right.
You are the expert of your classroom. So you need to take this wonderful summary that the AI has generated, or whatever it might be, the things that language models do well, like generating questions, reading comprehension texts, et cetera, et cetera. You need to take that now and shape it to fit your unique needs. And that's the workflow we build in to close that gap.
But that's the same thing with ChatGPT, right? Like, you can go in and you can ask ChatGPT to do what you want them to do. At the end of the day, you have to go in with your own kind of spin and twist to make it seem like it is organic, that it comes from you. So I can assume that it's the same thing with your education AI system. But what it does is, let's say, like I was saying, for my instance with my tutoring company, it will save me so much time, because now I don't have to do all the heavy work to instructionally design a curriculum for every single kid. The format will be there for me. And then I go in with the little details and fix it and tune it to that specific child. So again, you can kind of mass produce something for each individual person, but you can go in with the small details, save you time, and also just your energy to actually complete that, And
not to dive off the deep end here, but maybe a little bit. So as you were getting at with ChatGPT, well, there's also another barrier there, which is, not only do you have to now take the AI generated content and personalize it and shape it to your unique needs, which is a process, because you have to know exactly what it is you want. Your objectives have to be clear to get that. But secondarily, you also have to know how to prompt these systems. I mean, you can do it in a very natural way, just type out what you want and hit generate, and you will probably get something that is close to what you want, really. But the issue, I would argue, is that these systems, they have no conception of our world. The only thing they understand are the associations of words and language from these huge training sets. Now, the training sets are gigantic, a lot of data, massive amounts of data. So it has a wide grasp and understanding of our language, but it doesn't understand our world as it is. And only thing our language does is describe the world as it is, right? So there's this kind of gap between the real world and the language that describes it. The AI only works in that language world. So you have to take it and adapt it to the real world circumstance of your
Right.
students as they are. Because prompting an AI saying for a 7th grade student, again, I teach in a co-taught environment. Some of my students will have IEPs with specific learning disabilities that they are working toward, and different accommodations to get them to the level of other students in the classroom. I could tell an AI generate for a 7th grade student with, I don't know, dyslexia or with autism, and it can't really give you the content that you need to meet that student where they're at. You have to take what might be a great starting point and, walk it over the finish line, so to speak.
Right. Yeah, I totally understand what you're saying with that. I feel like that's with, so are you talking specifically with Chat GPT with that, or are you talking
I'm
about?
talking with, I would say, large language models more
Okay.
generally. Now, diffusion models, that's stuff like DALL-E or Midjourney, the things that will generate images, that's a little bit different. Again, it doesn't have a real conception of the world. It has a conception of different pixels and where they are in relation to one another to create specific labeled objects. But I'll speak more on language models because that's what I've studied more in the context of our business here. Yeah, a language model is definitely restricted. It's there's a philosopher of mine named John Searle, and he has this thought experiment called the Chinese room. And the idea is you are in a room, right? And closed off from the outside world. And you presumably do not speak Mandarin for this thought experiment. And you have to, so an outside observer will hand you a encoded message. The message is in Chinese, and you have a booklet that explains all of the connections between the language, and you have to spit out an answer using this booklet. You can do that without having any understanding of Chinese whatsoever, and then you can send that message back out, and it'll be perfectly aligned because you followed the rule book. That's really what this language model is doing. It's following this great rule book on how language relates to itself, but it doesn't have a real understanding of it. And that can create limitations. But if you understand what you want it to do, because it can do some things really well, you have the AI do that, and you have the human fill in the gap. And that is what we're doing with Eduaide.Ai. We have the language model do what the language model can do, and then we build in tools in a workspace that allows the user to do what they do best, which is make intuitive shifts in the lesson plan to fit the unique needs of their student. Sorry, I said I wasn't going to dive off the deep end, but
No,
I did.
you didn't. That was excellent. Go ahead, Thomas.
Yeah, so I'll give another scenario here in a different way, or how I view it. But if I was doing a reading assignment for class one day and I give one reading assignment, right? And like Tom was saying, that lesson is going to flop because the top kids are going to be bored and the bottom kids are going to struggle with hitting that there. And so what we've done is we've empowered tools like Lexile level changers, and where you could take a text, put it into Eduaide, click increase Lexile level. Now you have a high one. Okay, put the text in, hit decrease. Now you have a low one. So now you have 3 different readings of the same content with simpler words or more difficult. And you can really meet the needs of your students this way. And that's impossible to do if you don't have a tool like this. I can't spend my hour of planning, if it's even an hour. I can't spend that trying to find 5 or 6 different reading levels just to make sure that lesson is not going to flop. And so now we can do that with the power of AI and specifically Eduaide.
Now, I do want to clarify on that point. You could go and change the Lexile level. I mean, there are tools for that. But I think what Thomas is really getting at here is that that's a friction point. That's a place where now you have to go out, take some time to find a resource to do that. And then you have to, keep that tab open, jump between the 2 resources. You're putting it in your Google Doc. Well, you also have your Lexile generator, and then you also have the place where you're getting the text from. So now you're clicking between these 3 things. And each click, while that's not a huge investment of time, that's still time. You lose the tab, you lose the window, that's 2 minutes. You get up, you get a cup of coffee, that's 5 minutes. Well, before you know it, there's 6 minutes of your planning time, once because you're exhausted, once because you lost the tab. And there's all of this friction when you're jumping between different resources. We offer a Lexile increase or decrease or a scaler in our app, right? You don't have to go somewhere else. We offer translation in the app. You don't have to go somewhere else. We're limiting the friction points by creating this workspace that intuitively allows you to use AI tools, to use other non-AI tools, to use your own resources, and kind of create this ecosystem between what exists, what you're making, what could exist, what other teachers are doing once the community launches and you can file share. There'll be a lot of interesting avenues.
Wow, you guys are really revolutionizing education. Like, I don't know, I see you guys becoming so big. I see this becoming like massive
Well, let's
because
hope.
no, I really do because it just just the thought process behind it and hearing how passionate Thomas was speaking about how it frustrates him that good people are leaving the profession because of burnout and exhaustion and not being treated well. And I feel like sometimes if, like I said, if you're on the inside looking out, some people try to, I guess the only word I can think of is gaslight you to make it seem as if you are not, like, it's not as bad as we're saying it is. But if teachers are leaving in such a high amount, it shows that there really systemically is a problem. And then you see these news articles, like me and Zara talked about 2 weeks ago, about these teachers reacting negatively towards children. And one of the teachers pushed a kid down to his chair, was screaming at him. Another teacher actually poisoned a child. And then you start thinking about, like, what is mentally going on? I mean, the world already is a crazy place, right? But then you think about, okay, these people came into this profession for a reason, and now they're attacking the people or abusing the people, the kids that, they came to serve. Something is absolutely wrong. Um, so I wanted to fast forward to another question. I wanted to ask you guys, so you guys have been doing this for a couple months from when we first talked. I think you guys said you started in March. So what has been the results that you have been noticing? How has your company impacted the school community or teacher community? What has been your reviews like?
While our initial user uptake shows that there is a need for lesson and unit planning resources, in addition to like targeted learning objects and content, I'm going to restrain ourselves on giving our impact just yet. I mean, a lot of those months have been over the summer, and that's a lot of the planning months. And while we've generated over 400,000 pieces of unique educational content, um, I'm going to wait and see how it's used. That's going to be huge, right? I want to hear the feedback of once it's put into practice. We've seen some of that from March, April, May, June, but over July and August now, I want to see how this stuff will get used. And then I will give a more coherent judgment on what I think our impact is. But who could say? It's so long term because the teachers are the ones who have the impact.
That's
It's like
fair,
it's them who are taking the resource they made. While we might be saving time, it's the teachers who are going to have the real impact.
That's fair.
I'm gonna say no matter what, we've done a huge net positive because we are 100% free right now.
Oh,
and
yeah.
so everything that people have done is been for free. And there's like, it's just incredible, right? Like, so no matter what, we have offered the world and these teachers a way to improve their education in some way and for no cost to them, which is incredible.
All right, I will agree with that. I mean, just base marginal utility, for sure, we are adding value to schools and we are increasing the efficiency of teachers. And perhaps those teachers have explored new avenues they've never before considered. Yes, that is a huge help. I guess my caged response here, my restrained response, comes from I want to see what the net impact on the educational system will be. And when I say educational system, that's tougher because we have an international user base. I mean, we have users who are in Oman, in Saudi Arabia, we have users in Morocco, all throughout Europe, the UK, Southeast Asia, East Asia, Japan, Korea. And the question is, how do you measure impact in this broad context, in this diffuse context? Because doing any research in education, like in the wild, so to speak, like in the classrooms, is really hard. It's not a controlled environment. There's a lot of factors that are going to affect how useful a given tool will be. So doing research on educational technologies and their impact is tough. But again, I know that if we are making the planning process more efficient, in amplifying teachers' creativity, then that's going to be a net positive, because the teachers will be more free to have a positive impact than being restrained and not having as deep of an effect.
No, Tom, I understood where you were coming from, though. You acknowledged that you did make some impact, but you're also saying that you want to see what happens after in the summer months, because you've only seen what happens at the end of the school year. So you want to see like what it looks like after teachers are really planning this, and maybe even going into the beginning of the school year, what impact it really would have on
first quarter, first
yeah.
semester, first
Right.
year.
But I also
like,
agree with Thomas, though, because honestly, you guys have impacted me just by even having this conversation and hearing what it actually is out there and possible. Because having just a tool that you know can save you time and energy and can help you to be not burnt out, not exhausted, have solving a problem that has been consistent in the education field is already impactful on itself.
Yeah,
So I get
the number one complaint this year by teachers was the immense workload that they have to face, and we're tackling that directly.
Absolutely. Yeah. So that goes into my next question. What has been the most challenging aspect of even starting the company, with partnering with each other, or even partnering with other people? Because I know you said you have a board of advisors. So what has been the most challenging aspect of this whole process?
As with anything, balance is certainly the perennial issue. How much time can I give to Eduaide? How much time of that will be productive time where I'm creative, I'm sharp, I'm thinking deeply about issues? How much time can I give to teaching? And then all of my other obligations, I run my school's chess club, student councils, also outside activities. I like to run, I like to train, that kind of thing. Like, how do I balance all of these things together? Because I'm passionate about all of them, and I want all of them in my life, and I want to be super effective at all of them if I can be. And finding that balance.
Thomas?
To me, it's really not fair, because people have a preconceived idea of what artificial intelligence is, and the negative impacts that it's going to have, or this or that, because of fiction movies. And so there's a huge barrier for us to show how tangible and how useful this is. And that's been a tough barrier to get over.
That's
certainly.
Yeah, wow. Those are really good points. Even when starting my company as well, I noticed that the balance was really hard for me too. Because I mean, balance when you want to do good in all things, sometimes it's like you have to figure out what time you have, what energy you have at a certain time. When can you be the most productive for these people? When can you be the most productive for yourself? And so I understand that balancing act also. And then, but to your point, Thomas, also, there are tons of negative things about AI, about it taking over the world, about robots walking around in the streets. And so then you start thinking like, oh my God, this is terrible. AI creates you to not be able to think on your own. But in reality, what you guys are doing is, obviously teachers can think on their own, but you're giving them a system so that they don't have to burn themselves out, because you still have to have that humanistic quality that you put in to the system, but so they don't have to burn themselves out. But now they can, have more time for their own lives. They can balance their own lives a bit better. Go ahead.
Yeah, without like throwing shade at our competition or anything like that, we really have built this with the intent that teachers are experts, right? You go and get an education on education to be a good educator. And so we have built this to allow teachers to manipulate it in any way that they possibly can. Whereas some other things out there give you like a block chunk and then it's done, and you can't manipulate it and you can't move it. And we just don't believe in that. We don't believe that the AI is more powerful than the teacher. We believe that the teacher's the expert and can leverage the AI as a tool to save time and to increase quality.
Awesome.
I mean, to
go ahead,
both
Tom.
of those points, like me understanding this need for balance was really me really experiencing what most teachers go through. I mean, there's a large number in our profession who carry a second job, who are, in addition to grinding through all of these lesson plans and taking work home, now also have to go to another job.
Yep.
I mean, I had a instructional coach, Thomas, and I worked with this person. Right after work, we'd be like, all right, I'm going home. I'm going to I'm going to be able to relax a little bit. I'm going to work out a little bit. Then I'm going to go finish up a lesson plan. She'd be like, well, no, I'm going to my second job. And it's like doing a 10-hour, 12-hour, 15-hour day. That's a lot to ask for a teacher. I mean,
Yeah,
because you have to do a lot of your job at home. I mean,
mm,
that's a portion of it as our system currently is.
it is.
And then to the second point about the technology itself and the barriers to an understanding of what it truly is, I mean, that large language models are not quite the popular conception of AI. It's not a conscious living creature or anything like that. It doesn't have desires or wants. It is simply, again, responding to an input and creating an output that utilizes its data set. And it may look like reasoning, and perhaps it is. Perhaps this is a form of thinking, and that's a debate for the philosophers to have. But what I will say is, once you understand that, you can begin to design technologies around that utilize it in the best possible way. If we
Mm,
understand what the technology is, then we can use it where it makes sense to use it. Strip away all the technology and say, what do we want to accomplish? How does any specific use of a wide variety of technologies, how does any one of those get us closer to achieving our goals, to achieving our objectives? Because in education, I've seen way too many times where a technology is adopted for no other reason than we haven't adopted that technology. And, it's the
mhm.
big thing out right now. So we definitely need this new whatever lab that involves these technologies. And while I do like schools on the cutting edge so students can experiment and learn and with different media, I also understand that you need to use it well. I've seen too many smart boards in rooms where it doesn't make sense to have a smart board because a teacher hasn't turned it on once because they don't have
Right.
any professional development to understand how to use it well.
It's so true.
And there's all these gaps to an effective technological adoption. We want to solve as many of those in the design of our platform as we can, and then make up with any of the deficiencies where we can't with reasonable professional development.
That was really, really good. And when you mentioned that, you have to understand the technology, and this may sound a little far-fetched, but it makes me think about being in a plane when you have turbulence. And a lot of people freak out when, the plane is like jumping up and down in turbulence.
Mm-hmm.
But then you realize that just how you're riding in a car and you have potholes, that turbulence is literally just another form of the clouds being thick in another certain area, or
Mm-hmm.
the air not being the same a density as another piece of air. And so it's like that. I've looked at a lot of social media things, but when you start learning about the air, learning about planes, you start recognizing like, oh wait, I get this now. So you become less fearful of it. So I love that you mentioned that you have to understand the technology to actually be able to accept it, because once you learn about AI and learn that what it can do and the tools that it can actually help you with, and learning how to navigate it, then you're able to fully accept it and use it for your advantage instead of seeing it as something that's your enemy or something that can really
Mm-hmm.
take your job or, be at a loss to you.
Well,
I'm not.
that also doesn't mean like every
Mhm.
person in the world needs to go out and get educated on artificial
Of course
intelligence.
not. No,
And
yeah.
it's not like the more you learn about it, the more you be like, oh yeah, let's adopt it. Like you should be skeptical of any new technology because it will have effects on society that you cannot possibly foresee, right? I think as a as a planet, maybe we too readily adopted social media unquestioningly into every
Mm,
aspect of our lives without, asking some questions of how might this affect our social relationships, and some deeper questions of what it means to actually be connected. And once you ask those questions and you explore maybe consequences that you didn't foresee, which is tough to do, how are you going to explore them if you don't foresee them? So I think a base level of skepticism or maybe concern or maybe just some curiosity such that you ask questions about it would be helpful. It's
that's a
not
fair
knowing AI. I think it's just wanting to just know things.
No, that's a fair point. And that's kind of like what I was getting at too. Not saying that you should fully accept it,
Mhm.
but learning more about how something works, learning more about how the processes of something allows you to be more accepting and know how you can use it for your best benefit
Mhm.
instead of it being to your detriment.
I see what you mean. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I agree.
hmm Okay, so if any teachers out there, because you do have a lot of teachers, especially new teachers that follow our podcast. And like you said earlier, Thomas, the first 3 years of teaching for many around the country is the point where it's the hardest to attain or retain teachers. So how can teachers be able to access this platform for their benefit? What can they do? How do they reach out to you? How do they get this into their hands for the next school year?
Yeah, go to Eduaide.Ai. You can Google that and it'll come right up. And you can sign up for 100% free. You can generate as much stuff as you possibly want. So if you're looking to create content, you're making questions, you're making reading resources, you can load up and create as much as you want and save it. And, do it. I think the best thing to do is just to play around with it. We've really taken away the prompting aspect of using AI, and we are really just like button driven. So if you want to create a primary source reading, reading article on like the War of 1812, you just type in the War of 1812, click primary source, boom, you're going to get it with some questions, refine it, use it, and do what you need. But it's going to save you a lot of time.
Awesome. And I will also put the website and also any links in our podcast description. So you guys will be able to have easy access to that. On our YouTube, on our Apple podcast, you'll see everything in our, in our description for that episode. So you can automatically just go in there and click that. When this episode launches also, we'll include the links in our stories and also, in our, we'll direct you to where to go to see them and link and, attach all kind of links to them also. But I absolutely really love this episode with you guys. I've learned so much, not even like about AI. I mean, I know I was talking about like being more accepting of AI, but it was because I was becoming more accepting as I was talking to you guys about it. To be honest, it really did open my mind, and I definitely will be using the system also for my tutoring company to help my tutors also with planning the curriculum for their specific children, because I see so much value in it and so much value in what you guys are doing. I think just the passion that you guys both have for this is why you have been exploding so much for it, because it just comes from a place of your heart. It comes from a place of, this is what I'm supposed to be doing for society. It comes from a place of, I've been there before and I don't want other people to do that also. So I think that's why you're generating so much success, because it's coming from like not a self-righteous place, but it's coming from a place where for the better good of all those involved. And then also because you know for yourself that it's something that you also needed, because you guys are also teachers. So I just want to say that thank you for your time also, because I've learned a lot through this conversation. You have a new teacher on your on your radar. So if it's 500,000, it's 500,001 because me. So I just want to encourage anybody that's on here listening. I know we have a lot of year 1 to 4 teachers on here, to go ahead, click that link, Eduaide.Ai. It's in the link in the bio. And check it out. See how it is. They said it's totally 100% free, so you really have nothing to lose. But what you could do also is give them a good review so that they can attract more sponsors. They can get grants for what they're doing, that they can attract more board of advisors that can lead them into new places, into new nations, into new countries, so that, we are teachers supporting other teachers, because honestly, the best people to create things for our children are people that know the kids, people that have experienced the kids. It's not just about getting a degree. It's not just about advancing your diploma or your educational expertise or getting an administration leadership license. It's about work. It's about knowing the children because you've worked with them. It's about, however many years you've worked in the system. It's about, caring about these children, caring about who what impacts them the most, because it's not that these people are saying, that the teachers, veteran, not talking about veteran teachers or younger teachers or the issues between them. They're talking about the impact that the system has on the children and how they have found the solution to this problem. So 120% support this, in this move that Tom and Thomas are doing. And so on our closing note, I just would like Tom or Thomas to include any last words that you want to say, include your social media handles so that people can go ahead and follow you. And yeah.
Yeah, just as a closing point here, you know, as being a 90s teacher, right, being born in the 90s and growing up in this technology boom, there was freak out about calculators, there's freak out about internet, there's freak out about smartphones, there's freak out about AI. But I think at the end of the day, we're going to see that this is going to be a net positive for, you know, us trying to make a difference in the world.
And to extend on that point in closing, this is a tool you can use to help make you the best teacher you can be, right? But it's not a solution to all of the problems you're going to have in the classroom. It's not going to solve everything that you're going to run into. But it's something that can help. It's something that you can use, and it's something that we give you power over. Instead of you just unquestioningly accepting content and giving it to your students, we encourage you to personalize it, to make it your own, to let it reflect your style as a teacher, to let it enrich your craft that you've been working on. So if you're a teacher and you're listening, I mean, trust that you're an expert and trust your intuition and take resources and personalize it to meet the needs of the students that you know. And if you start from that place, I mean, you're in the right place. You're moving in the right direction. Education's the silver bullet. It's the greatest societal mover. It's the greatest opportunity for students to improve their station in life beyond that of their parents or previous generations. I mean, it's the thing. It's the thing, because you have to be a thinking person. You have to be a reasonable person, and you have to pursue that. You have to want that yourself, and your teachers help you with that.
Yeah.
I love that. So no more getting just those little pamphlets for your PDs and not knowing what to do with them. Now
Mhm.
you have an actual tangible system you can use that you can put your information in, and it can generate something for you to get your head start for something that maybe that you've
Exactly.
been struggling with conceptualizing for a very long time. So I applaud both of you guys. Congratulations on all the success that you will get and that you have gotten and that you will get in the future. And it was an absolute pleasure to speak with you. So social media handles?
Eduaide.Ai
Got
On
everywhere.
everything. Yep. All over the
Made by
place.
teachers for teachers.
Hey, that's what's up.
There it is.
Yes. All right,
Thank you
guys.
for having us on.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, no problem. It was
This is
my
great.
pleasure. My pleasure. Okay, so as always, you guys go ahead and follow us at Them 90s Teachers. You guys know where it's at. And today Zahra was not with us, but we have her in our soul, in our spirit, you know. So it's just me. So we are going to end this now. Thank y'all so much for listening. You guys are the best, and we will definitely see you guys for next week.